Static class. To understand the static class, let's divide these into two different classes, two different class families. One family where only and only class remains, normal class. Second, where all other classes remains, your abstract class, seed class, virtual class, and static class, right? So these are the two different families of class. So Microsoft, we know, quite intelligent, and they keep improvising their languages, their softwares. So they have copied everything from C++, and then they keep improvising. So according to the feedback, different programmers feedback, according to fulfill their requirement. So they don't have to keep writing lot of code. So they have created different classes to fulfill the different job. So this video we are going to talk about how, why, when you can use static class. Along with that, we will also talk about how this is important to your memory, your application memory, right? So let's start. So what we have to do, we will say add new item and let's create one new class. Okay, so let's name it static, or we can say class static. So this is my static class. So just a name, you can add any name. I'm just adding this name for better understanding that this class is static. Okay, so one interesting thing, if you go over here, over this new item where you add templates, you won't see anything named with static, right? So you can search here as well, and let's see if we find something. No, so there is nothing, right? So everything here is class. Perfect. So what we are going to do, we are going to add a class as regular classes. There you go. And now this is the parent family, right? This is what Microsoft has got from C++. Now to extend this, what Microsoft has done, they have created different other classes, right? So here, so to make this class static, first you have to say static. So this is the first thing about static class. Next, static class only holds static members and static methods. What it means, let me show you. So if you go over here and say, hey, public, and I wanted to create one string variable, let's say this is my first variable. So will it support or not? No. And the reason is static class can only support static things. It is like casteism. So if it is it belongs to one caste, then it allows only those caste people or those community people inside its house or inside its colony, right? So this is what static classes does. This is a complete discrimination, you can say, to better understanding. Okay, so this is what static class is, right? So it says I don't support any other caste. I need only static class in my house, my colonies. Okay, so let's make it static to make it happy. Here you go. So see, now this is happy, right? Similar to this was a variables. Now similar to method. So let me create one again. Public. I would say, hey, this is my string and this is my first method. Let's see what it says. For sure this is string, so I have written something string. You see, it started shouting, hey, this doesn't belong to my caste. Come on, give me my caste, people. My caste method only, right? So this is what it is. So you have to make it static. Now this is happy, man. This is happy. That is what static is. Right? Perfect. Okay. So now we understand, what static is, how you can create a static class in your C#.net. So this is the example. Next, what is next? So how you can, call static class somewhere in some other classes, right? So normally what you do, to create a class, to call a class, you create object of the class. But in static class, you are not allowed to create any object by yourself. You don't have any control over static class object. it will create by itself in memory. That .NET runtime will take care. You don't need to worry about anything, right? So let me show you how it works. Okay, so this is class static. Let's try to create object first, and let's see what Microsoft and Visual Studio says to us. Okay, so let's go to one of the class, which is program class, and let me say, hey, this is my class, give me one object, and let's see what it says. See, it started compile time error, and what the error is? Error says cannot declare a variable static type class static. So you can't do that, right? You are not allowed. So what you have to do? If you wanted to access something, you have to access that with class name only. That is why this static class, right? So you see, you have first method, right? And similar here, you can access that variable as well. See, you have that variable, right? So for sure you have to assign something, otherwise it will say, hey, I am returning string, but you are not utilizing that. So that is why you have to assign. Okay, so you see, this is happy now, and this is how you can call data member and data functions of static classes into some other class. So that is one thing. Second thing, static class is a complete violation of OOPS. Complete violation of OOPS. Why I am saying that? OOPS says that I support inheritance, but static class says I don't support inheritance. Is it not violation of OOPS? So that is why I am saying it is a complete violation of OOPS, right? But there is one interesting thing. Static class don't allow inheritance, we know, but it is allowing object class. Let me show you. Let me show you first. Inherit some regular class. Let's see what it says. So I have one class called this email service. Let me try to inherit this. See, it says it is not allowed. Static class don't allow inheritance. You will clearly see. Right now, can it support interface also? The answer is, let's see. Right. So this is my interface. One interface. Let me see what it says. Don't allow even interface. No class, no interface, nothing. You can't inherit anything, right? No, not even abstract class. Remember that. Nothing you can inherit. But object. It allows object. I will tell you, why it is allowing object. But let's see first on this Visual Studio. Does it allow or not? Am I speaking right or not? Let's see. So let's say object. Here you go. No compile time error, no bug, nothing. It is happy. So that means it is allowing. And you know why? Because object is a class which is mother of all classes. This is the class which has given birth to every class. It is sitting on the top, root, and every class is inheriting that object class. That is by default is the base class of every class. So static class have no choices because it is son of that class or maybe daughter of that class, right? That is why. Interesting thing, right? Okay, now let's go ahead. So now we learned how to create a class, right? And we also understood that what it supports and what it doesn't, right? Now the second thing is why you need a static class. So to understand why you need a static class, you have to keep separate your business logic and your other logics in two different parts. Any business logic in your application which is dealing with your application, right? Keep all those logics in regular class without static. But if there is anything which is helping your application, right, which is not actual business but it's still required for your application to help. Maybe like database connection strings, right? That is required for your application, but it don't require any business logic to fetch those connection strings. All those sort of logics, put it inside static class, right? So let's see. So what I will do, I will create let's remove this because we understand this concept. So let's say this is my database config class. I don't need this variable, and I need cat connection string, right? So now your connection string never gonna change in your application. You're going to use this database at least till last deployment, right? So this is something that is going to static. To understand anything, remember, you should understand the meaning of that word. Static means fixed, something that is not going to change. So all those things, put it inside static class, right? So here, if you see, we have placed one class called database config, and what it does, it is fetching database connection string. So you can create those utilities, these configurations things over here. Okay, so this is one use case. Now what is the second use case? So this was your other than business logic. The second could be your extensions method. You need to create one extensions method in your application where you say, okay, I need one extensions, okay, which I don't need to create this class name and then dot. What I wanted to do, I wanted to say similar to what Microsoft does, like this. Okay, I wanted to convert this into like, for example, let's say okay, not here, let's say here there is something integer a, and there is some number, but now you wanted to convert this into string, right? So okay, here you have to say string, otherwise how it will work, but right. So this was the number, but you converted into string. Now you wanted to create something like this, right, with that dot, and you wanted to access all those functionality, right? So what you will do, you can create extension method for those, and static class will help you to create extension method, right? Okay, so now if you want to do same class without extension, how you will do that? You will say, hey, I need db config, this is not the right class, I need to go to program class. Let's say, okay, so I need a db connection string, right? And here you go. So this is returning db connection string. But maybe something, what you do, you say, hey, this, I would say just server name, let's say string, right? And this would be your string. Actually I messed up, so I have to say server name. Okay, so and return from something from here. Maybe this is return connection string. So I'm putting some hard values just for understanding, but in your code you will return some connection string from here. Okay, so what I wanted to do now, what I will say, hey, this is my, let's say this is your server name, right? Now what you wanted to do, hey, I need a server, I need a connection string. What I will do, I will say this is my connection string and this is my server name. Now give me connection string. Here you go. See, so you don't need to say class name and then dot. You are able to call your method directly with the help of extension. Now one more interesting fact. So can you create extension without extension method without a static class? Let's see. Let's remove this static here from here. Let's see what it says. Okay, so you see it says extension methods must be defined in non-generic static class, right? So that means you need a static class help to create extensions method, right? So this was the second use case. Now third use case. So first we learned about how you can get any class where you don't need to put your business logic. Second, if you wanted to create extensions. Third, if you wanted to create helper classes in your application, right? Helper class, for example, you wanted to create one datetime helper, right? So let's say, hey, this is my datetime helper. Let's make it static class again. Now I wanted to get time zone from that date, right? And you pass date time, right? And here you return that time zone, right? So return some logic here, so you can say IST. Let's say just hard-coded word for now. Okay, so IST. So for these kind of things, because this method is going to be used everywhere, all over the application, right? So why to create a normal class? Why to create an object every time? Microsoft has given us a beautiful thing where you don't need to say new every time. You just have to say I need this class name dot this, and it will give you the result, right? So now this was the third use case. Now how it is useful for the application? It is saving lot of resources, lot of memory for your application. Things like these, your configuration, your database configuration, your application inside configuration, log configurations, your helper classes, utilities, all of those things are not a business logic. They are just helping your application to achieve the final goal, the business goal, right? So why to create different memories for this? So static class will help you to save lot of memory, right? Because in memory, if you call this method one class, second method this class, from different methods, it make a call to this method, right? In memory, .NET memory, it will access only one object, right? You are not going to waste a lot of memory from here, and you don't need to worry about cleaning the memory. The other thing is static constructor. Why you need a static constructor? Okay, let's understand static constructor as well. Let's go to our class pack. This is our class, right? Now why you need a static constructor, right? So if you try to create simple constructor over here, you will see it is not allowing. You see, it is not allowing any constructor, right? So what you have to do, you have to say static. So because what we talked, static is supporting castism, so everything it need only static. So now it supports static constructor, and static constructor can't be parameterized. You cannot pass any parameter in static constructor. If you don't trust me, let me show you. So let's say integer and number. So see, start complaining. See, static constructor must be parameterless, right? So now if you must be thinking, hey man, if I can't pass any parameter, why the hell I need even constructor, right? So let me show you. So now let's imagine there is something that you need to make a call to a different class, and that class is returning some data, and you have, let's pretend you have two methods. So don't go over the name, but let's pretend you have the two methods, right? Get time zone and get time zone ID. Both of these need one common things. Maybe they also need user information to see if they wanted to return that time zone or not, right? So what you will do, you will create object, right? So I'm just showing let's imagine we have called here new object, right? And this is my object, right? So now this thing needs to call everywhere. So let's say this is method and fetch user info, right? So this is my user info. Now we have created one static here, static, and say string username, right? So what we will do, we will pass that user info over here in the username. Maybe you can say here dot username. Now, so how it solves the problem? So there is something common that you need to pass with multiple method in that static class. For those purpose you can use your static constructor. Now let's say I wanted to check everywhere. If username has some value, I mean there is a username, then only I wanted to perform this operation, right? So let's add this check and say if there is some value, that means not null or empty, then only perform the further operation. Perfect. Okay, so I missed something. Here you go. Control KD to make your code beautiful, right? Here you go. And here you need to return again something, otherwise it will keep shouting. Similar over here, you need similar logic somewhere, and maybe it says PST, right? So here you go. So you are going to use static constructor when you need to pass common things all over that static class. Okay, so this is how static class works. That's all for today's video. I will see you in the next video. Stay in touch, man.